Welcome to the 2024 Kresy Family webinar, sponsored by the Polish Embassy in United Kingdom as part of the Polish Heritage Days initiative. This talk will be recorded and will be available on YouTube after this event. We are delighted that we have participants from 11 countries registered for the event today. We are really happy to have you all and welcome to you all. We are so happy that you are able to join us. We welcome our friend Jerry Kubica. Jerry was deported as a one-year-old to Kazakhstan in 1940 with his mother and his two sisters. His father had been sent to the GULAG. After the amnesty, Jerry and his family were evacuated to Persia, where one of his sisters died. He was then settled in the refugee camp in India. His father joined the Polish army and fought in Monte Cassino. The family were reunited in England in 1947. In the 1990s, Jerry started following the trail of the Anders army and his family, visiting Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. He has also visited Italy and Monte Cassino many times. He has written 4 very interesting books describing his thoughts and his travels. The 80th anniversary of Monte Cassino battle is one of the themes of this year's Polish Heritage Days. Most people who visit Monte Cassino visit the monastery and cemetery and maybe a monument or two. But Jerry Kubica has visited most of the battle routes followed by the Polish forces. And for today's webinar, he has prepared a presentation describing some of his experiences whilst following the battle trails. Today's webinar covers Cassino town, the cemeteries, Piedimonte, the Abbey Walk, and the Inferno track. Jerry has also prepared presentations on his walks on the Cavendish Trail, Polish 5th Kresowa Infantry Division Monument, and Villa Santa Lucia. And these will be included in the YouTube version of the presentation, which will be available on our YouTube channel within a week or so. After the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. We would encourage you to type your questions into the chat on the Zoom so that we can read them and have them ready after the presentation.
Hello and welcome to this Monte Cassino webinar. My name is Jarosław Kubica, or Jerry for short. I am 85 now and I was 74 when I set out to do the trails on Monte Cassino. Back in 1964, I was at Ognisko Polskie Club in London. On the way out, I saw the 3 volumes of Monte Cassino by Melchior Wańkowicz. This was the last set they had, so I bought them immediately. £20 was quite a big chunk out of my reserves at the time. But ever since then, the 3 volumes had become my Bible on the subject of Monte Cassino. I also have the memoir of Field Marshal Albert Kesselring. He was in overall command of the German Air Force at the time Germany attacked Poland on 1st September 1939. He was also the overall commander of the German forces in Italy and in particular on Monte Cassino. There's nothing about General Anders in his memoir. There's nothing about the Polish troops in his memoir, but he does make one interesting comment and relevant comment. In his view, the German paratroopers defending Monte Cassino would never leave the posts. They would never surrender. They would fight till the very last man. So he had to give them his handwritten personal order to leave the post and move, to withdraw and move to the second line of defense. Well, in the last 60 years or so, there has been an awful lot written on the subject of Monte Cassino. You find it in written form, in published form, and on internet. So much so that there's little new that I can add to the subject now. And in particular, with ChatGPT and the pilot and Microsoft Pilot, you ask the question and you get an instant answer. There's just one other point I would like to make. About 8 years ago, I had a stroke. Well, there's nothing unique about a stroke or having a stroke, but I've noticed that much of the finer material on the subject that I used to have at my fingertips has somehow evaporated into the clouds. So what I'm presenting here now is what is fixed in my memory and will probably remain fixed for a long, long time to come. I realize that this my presentation is rather long, so I hope you'll be able to pick and choose what you want to see and listen to. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll get on with the webinar proper. When it became clear that the Germans had lost the war in North Africa, Hitler guessed or assumed correctly that the Allies will now go for what Churchill called the soft underbelly of Europe, that is, Sicily and mainland Italy. So he sent his top guy, Field Marshal Albert Kesselring. He sent him to Italy to prepare a defense plan, an impregnable defense plan to stop the Allies advancing up the leg of Italy and taking Rome. So Kesselring's plan centered on Monte Cassino. That was the kingpin in his plan. To the left of Monte Cassino, the Hitler line of defenses ran all the way to the Tyrrhenian Sea on the west coast of Italy, and to the right of Cassino, the Gustav line of defenses ran all the way to the Adriatic. And it's clear from the photograph here that as long as the Germans held the peaks around Cassino, especially the peaks to the right of Mount Cassino and the huge Monte Cairo, the 1,660-meter high Monte Cairo, then the Germans were in full control of whoever and whatever was approaching the foothills of Monte Cassino. April 2012. I'm in Cassino. Get off the train, walk about 500 meters, turn sharp left into the main street, and there in front of me is it, the Abbey sitting on a hill 506 meters high. Surely nobody would be crazy enough to try to take or destroy the Abbey by going straight up the hill. Maybe Attila the Hun with his Tatars might have tried that and succeeded, but surely not in modern times. I was lucky that day. I got a booking in Hotel Ngari, room 5, and this is the view from my balcony. Oh boy, it's scary the way it is. It's as if 11 lasers were directed at me. If I can see them, they can see me. And just one touch on the trigger in the Abbey, if the Germans were still there, and they would blow me into smithereens and the hotel. It really is scary, but it's a lovely, exciting view. The next morning, the abbey is still there. It's looking into every nook and cranny of town casino. It can count the number of people sitting down in the street for breakfast or for early lunch, and I'm sure it can see me licking a massive ice cream, the best that I have ever tasted anywhere in Italy. On the way to the Polish cemetery, I turned my back onto the abbey and immediately faced the reality of the day. A small group of young people are canvassing for the Communist Party. The red flag with the hammer and sickle is floating in the air, though you can't actually see it on this photograph. So the Allies helped Italy get rid of the Mussolini's black shirts, of Hitler's brown shirts. But now one of the Allies, Stalin, and his descendants are very happy to send us a batch of brand new red shirts. Casino's Day of Doom, a massive bombing raid on Casino, almost wiped it out entirely. The next slide shows how it was in Casino when the smoke lifted. Good Lord, can you believe it? This is Casino, the same Casino where I am standing today in April 2012. And this is Casino, probably the same road on which I'm standing now. This is Casino after the Allied bombing on the 15th of March, 1944. But today, in 2024, who remembers now how it was in 1944? Life goes in a full swing. Beautiful and photogenic are not the words that one normally associates with a cemetery, but here both apply. Designed in the form of the Polish emblem, the eagle, its two wings embrace the dead, embrace the dead soldiers and embrace the graves. The head of the eagle is most likely the abbey, and the heart of the eagle is in the center, the heart of Poland. It's an unforgettable cemetery, not only unforgettable by Polish people, but whatever nation visits. 9 o'clock in the morning, and a number of coaches are already parked by the cemetery. A group of people is standing at the heart of the cemetery and singing Czerwone Macchina Monte Cassino. I am looking through a list of the 1,070 names, trying to identify any that might have come from Postave, from where I was born. As I look back, 3 men are coming down in my direction. I walk up to them and ask, "Excuse me, are you from Poland?" "Yes, we are." "And tell me, what brings you here?" And they look at me in astonishment. "What do you mean, what brings us here?" "We are here because we are proud of what the Polish nation has achieved. We are here to honor the dead. We are here to kneel and say a prayer for the souls. We are here to sing Czerwone Macchina Monte Cassino." And they walk off in a bit of a huff. I can almost sense what they are saying to each other. What a stupid question. What brings us here? But as I turn around, I can see a woman sitting on a parapet and she is obviously weeping. I walk up to her. Excuse me, ma'am, why are you crying? Oh, proszę pana, this is my third visit here. Every time I come, whenever I think of the blood that must have been spilled here for our freedom and theirs, of the dead young men, I just can't stop weeping, and I continue weeping until I get back to my homes, until I get back to Poland. I gave her a bit of a hug and walk on. So I gave the woman a hug and went back to studying the long list of 1,070 names. As I did so, I recall reading Alexandra Piłsudska's memoir, and in it she says how her babcia constantly drummed it into her head that whoever was born Polish, a Pole, then he must be, should be, has to be a patriot. So perhaps these three men, three guys, were right. I am not patriotic enough, or I am not showing my patriotism in the right way. But my way of showing patriotism is to walk the battle trails on Monte Cassino and to do it solo. And I wonder, one thing still bothers me very much. Is this za waszą wolność I naszą, for your freedom and ours. It's a great motto. It's altruistic motto. But when I think of it, I think of Pulaski. I think of Kościuszko in the US. I think of Samosiera. I think of Jarosław Dąbrowski. I think of our battles on Monte Cassino in 1944. And in 1944, we still haven't won our own freedom. We've helped so many other nations. We've spilled so much blood helping other nations regaining their freedom. But by 1944, we were still under the Russian boot, under Stalin's boot. I wonder what was passing through General Anders's mind when purportedly Churchill once said to him. Churchill was getting so irritated by Anders reminding him constantly that we were promised a free and independent Poland. That's what we were fighting for. That's why we were fighting. And purportedly Churchill once said to him, well, take your men back to Poland. We don't need them anymore. We've got Stalin on our side. Good Lord, would you expect this of Churchill? Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, we fought za waszą wolność I naszą, for your freedom and ours on the Italian soil. We paid for it 1,000 lives in Monte Cassino, another 1,000 in Ancona, and 500 and more in Bologna. We paid for it with blood. We helped the Italians get rid of Mussolini, helped the Italians get rid of Hitler's men. We helped them regain their freedom. But in 1944, our freedom is still a question mark. No, I didn't find any idealistic or altruistic mottos in this cemetery, like, for instance, za waszą wolność I naszą, for your freedom and ours. Churchill and the Brits had one simple objective, to win the war, to beat Germany. Nothing else counted. And so it was. And if you didn't like to fight for the British Empire, well, you changed the name to Commonwealth. But we will win the war. And here's an interesting one, a tablet, a tombstone. This Hindu soldier from the Indian army is honored here. There are about 3,000 of them honored here, but those who survived the fighting on Monte Cassino, those that survived were shipped back to India 1945, and there they joined the Gandhi's passive resistance movement to win their freedom, the freedom for India. I was in India in 1947, and there was jubilation everywhere, even in a small village, in the Polish village where I live, there was jubilation at regaining their freedom. The French military cemetery in Venafro is perhaps the most interesting and revealing. The Brits fought the war to win the war. The Americans fought the war because Churchill persuaded Roosevelt that it's in the interest of America. The Poles fought the war for your freedom and ours. The Italians fought the war and they died so that fatherland may live. And the North Africans, the Muslims from North Africa, fought the war and died for France. Look at the next slide. They were Muslims. They were from Algeria, from Tunisia, from North Africa, from Morocco, and they died for France. This is unbelievable. I find it hard to believe that 6,500, mainly Muslims from North Africa, would have given up their lives for the love of France. What is it that made them join the Allies in the fight against Germany? Wasn't their natural love for pillage, for murder, rape and pillage? Was it perhaps the love for de Gaulle and the French colonialists occupying the country? Or was it, as I think most probable, is the promise of freedom, promise of independence from the French colonial rule? I wonder who wrote the epitaph on the gravestone of this Algerian soldier. It's hard to believe that 6,500 of them would have died for the love of France, the colonialist France, when only 5 years later, the Algerians who survived this particular war rose up against the French colonialists in Algiers, a brutal, massive, murderous uprising. I left the Polish War Cemetery with people standing to attention and singing Czerwone Maki na Monte Cassino. 30 to 40 minutes brisk walk, and I'm at the German cemetery. The first sight that really upsets me is the simple fact that there are so very, very few red poppies flowering anywhere that I have been so far. And yet here, right on the doorstep of the German chimney, in the little house that is at the entrance to the path leading to the German cemetery, there's the garden, the front garden is absolutely full of red poppies. Where have they come from? Why are they not at our cemetery? Anyway, I walk on to the German cemetery, and the first sight amazes me. Here I have a statue, and I can sense the man saying, "My dear son, don't you cry for me. I fought, I killed, and I died for our Führer. It's your turn now. You are young and strong. Our future is with you." And so we go on to the main part of the cemetery. And here, the other thing that really strikes me and is very, very painful is wherever I look, I can see graves and tablets and Polish names, genuine Polish names on the tablets. How can it be? So many Polish names, saving the Führer. But that's a long story which I can cover later. And the other aspect of the German cemetery is that it's looking out, it's actually looking out onto the Cavendish Road, Droga Polskich Saperów, the one that is so critical to the history of our fighting in Monte Cassino. So the other thing about the German cemetery, it's so peaceful, so relaxing. I would be quite happy to sit on a bench and open up a sandwich box and a thermos flask of tea and enjoy a respite in absolute peace. The cross I can see on the photograph here surprises me a little bit. I wasn't expecting to see a cross here, rather a swastika or something of that nature. But that's how it is. This map and the one below are very useful tourist maps. They give various trails, well, most of the trails around Monte Cassino. The casino itself is bottom right, and Villa Santa Lucia is in the center of the depression, and Piedimonte is a little bit below. In my naivety, I tried to watch the crest over the depression, and I did get into serious trouble. 300 steps straight up, although I've lost count, but say 300 steps, and I'm in Piedimonte. The town has been completely rebuilt after the war, and the Polish monument is on the far side of town. I'm surprised how little is being said or written about Piedimonte in connection with the battle for Monte Cassino. Piedimonte occupies a crucial position in the whole affair, in the battle for Monte Cassino. After Monte Cassino has been cleared of the Germans, the Allied forces now started moving up the Liri Valley on Route A6. And here Piedimonte occupied a very specific and crucial position. It's the juncture between the Hitler line going west all the way to the Tyrrhenian Sea, the west coast of Italy, and the Gustav line going all the way east to the Adriatic. Now, General Anders happily accepted the challenge to clear Monte Cassino, to clear Piedimonte of whatever German forces were there. It was thought that both Piedimonte and Villa Santa Lucia are very lightly defended, but we've learned how wrong that assumption was. And secondly, the Polish forces had no respite between the victory on Monte Cassino and the challenge of Piedimonte. The troops were tired, of course they were tired, but Piedimonte, as it turned out, was extremely heavily defended because of its crucial position. So we learned a very hard lesson. According to Vankowicz, some 27 Polish tanks were destroyed or put out of action. And Vankowicz talks of an anti-tank gun way up on the hill to the left of Piedimonte, and it had total mastery of anything, any tanks or any other vehicles that would approach this particular road, the road junction here between A6 and the road that leads into Piedimonte, the road on my photograph. So I've decided to go up to see what's left on the hill that Vankowicz talks about. Trouble is that it's mid-June and it's awfully hot, and I don't have much water, maybe half a liter of water. But even so, I go up and up and up, and at the very top, there's really nothing left to see. There's a chapel with the doors locked and a cross which marks the summit. a cross with two bells, one on each arm of the cross. Ah, yes. Here again, za vašom wolność i naszą, for your freedom and ours. It took 5 days of bitter fighting by the 6th Armored Regiment and men from 3rd DSK to clear this little town of Piedimonte, to clear it of Germans. It was as bad as fighting and winning, well, as bad as fighting on the fighting for the Abbey on Monte Cassino. Somewhere on top of that hill stood the anti-tank gun that massacred many of our tanks, described by Vankovich. I struggled up there in the heat of the day. That must have been 30 centigrade, if not considerably more. The anti-tank gun and the big oak or the big tree described by Vankovich have been blown to smithereens by Polish artillery. What remains 75 years later, what we have now is this cross and a chapel which unfortunately was locked today. An anti-tank gun that is perhaps not unlike the one that stood on the hill in May 1944. This one is actually from Terel. It was mid-June and very, very hot by midday. I was absolutely exhausted and dying of thirst, coming down from that hill back to Piedimonte. First shop I see, I'll have to pop in and get something to eat or drink. First shop had the door open, so I walk in. But I'm not in a shop. I'm in somebody's bedroom or living room. 3 little steps led down to a lower ground. So I come down the steps, push the door open, and walk into the shop proper. The 3 people there look at me like an apparition, totally startled. Who the hell is this guy coming down from the bedroom or the living room? I say, me, Polacco. Polacco. Milk, any milk? And there's a guy, tall, young-looking, blonde, blue-eyed guy standing to my side, says, Mills, Mills. Yes, Mills. In all this confusion, I forgot that Italian for milk is latte, of course. I've had so many lattes, coffees back home, I should have known, but I understood Mills. That's German for milk. So I got a liter of milk, a liter bottle of milk, and I sat out and just gobbled it up. Oh dear, I was so tired, but I still wanted to do to this day what the proprietor must have thought of me coming down the steps from the living room or bedroom with a backpack on me and looking so disheveled, incredible. Walking up to the Abbey. Well, if the man could do it in 1944, surely I can do it in 2024. The roads are much better now, and the zigzag makes it so much easier. So up and up and up. But at the first pinhead, I am pleasantly surprised. The castle is there, and the gateway is locked, but there are no workers here today. What a chance for me. I climb or clamber over the gate, clamber over the metal fence, and run up to the gate. No drawbridge. The gateway is open too, so I get inside really to be the master of the castle. For 5 or 10 minutes I'm here. The Vankovich doesn't cover the fight for the castle, but this is one of the most bitter fights between the Germans and the British. The 1, 2, battalion of the Essex Regiment. Fascinating. Inside of the castle, in the process of restoration. I'm surprised at how small it is inside. Could it accommodate 200 or more defenders? Wow, it's really hot today, and there's no shelter on the way up to the abbey. Halfway up, and my trousers are so heavy from sweat, they are falling down to my knees, and I have to pull them up constantly. One or two cars maximum that pass me wave to me, thinking, what a stupid guy walking when there are plenty of cars that I could go up in. Anyway, halfway up, there's one solitary tree. I stop there for a little bit of shade and a sip of water. Off with my top, let it dry out a little bit, and then continue. And so I go on. It's getting hotter and hotter. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I finally reached the Abbey. Wow, I am so happy now. At last I am there. I don't think I will go into the Abbey today, not in the condition I am in right now. I'm dead tired. So there's nothing for me to do now except wait for the shuttle bus to take me back to Casino. I settled down on a pillar in the shade of the trees at the foot of the monastery and wait for the bus. Drink lots and lots of water and obviously extremely tired. I see a young man coming over in my direction. He comes up and we exchange pleasantries. I am here because my father took part in the battle for Monte Cassino, and he's visiting the monastery today. He's been here many times before, but today he also wants to see the monastery. And then he puts his hand out and says, "My name is Kesselring." What? You mean the Kesselring? Yes, the Kesselring. I live near Gdańsk. Unbelievable, I thought. Unbelievable. And I think we spoke in English rather than Polish. It's the emphasis on the which makes me think that we spoke in English. And he says, "Well, look, if you are going back to Casino, I can give you a ride. Come on, and I'll tell you a little anecdote about Arnold kissing, about Arnold." So I happily agreed because I would have to wait another hour or longer for the bus. So the young Kessering goes to pick up his car, a lovely, new, sporty, white car. I get in and we drive off. And he tells me, this little anecdote. Some years ago, during the war in 44, Albert Kessering spent a few days on a little island off the mainland Italy, in the Mediterranean Sea of the mainland. And so I visited the same hotel a few years ago. I would go up to the reception, show them my passport. They say, "Oh, plenty of stays, don't you worry." But as I show them my passport, give them my passport, they look at it and say, Kesselring, oh, sorry, there's no room for you here. You know, back in 1944, we had a guy of the same name. He stayed here a few days and then he left with paying his bills. So I am sorry, but we can't take you. And this young Kesselring drove me to my hotel where I got off, and we did shake hands. Well, I know that Poland and Germany shook hands, so there's no reason at all why I can't or shouldn't shake hands with the young Kesselring. Just across the road from the German cemetery, I start on the Cavendish Road Trail. If you can forget the blood and death synonymous with Monte Cassino, this should probably be the most beautiful trail that you have walked in this part of Italy. Trouble is that it's very, very hot already, although it's early in the morning. But I have only got half a liter of water and I've got a pretty heavy metal detector in my backpack. You know, naivety will cost me dearly, but I was hoping to find some remnants or signs of residues of the battles, of the bombarding and the artillery shells that must have fallen on this trail. The heat really gets to you very quickly, and I didn't have much water. That metal detector, which I've been lugging with me from the very early days, hasn't proven very useful. I haven't, the Cavendish Trail has been walked over so many times and metal detected so many times. It's absolutely clean of any metal pieces. So I could have left the metal detector at home. I have found nothing. I have only found a piece of a metal shrapnel uh, on the big bone, but that's all. Nothing on Cavendish. 50 further steps along and I come to a fork. Oh, that's something quite unexpected. Left goes down, the right goes up. Where do I go? Which is the best option for me if I want to get back to the monastery? Call the museum, they will know. Get the phone out, dial the number. Oh, hell, no reception. The phone doesn't work. And what? I'm here on my own, entirely on my own. There's no way to contact anybody in this world if my phone doesn't work. Cool down, boy. Get a sip of water and get the chocolate out. So I reach one sip of water. I reach for the chocolate and it oozes out through my fingers. Ah, throw it away. The chocolate's in my backpack has melted. So, I'll go down, run down amongst the bushes. The path leads down and the bushes stare at my arms. Was that a snake bite or just a bush that ripped my skin open? Never mind, no time to think about things like that. Better get down quickly. And finally, round the corner, and I am out. There's that big, long green that I have seen so many times on Google Earth. That's it. I should be home now. From here, I should be able to find my way back home. But there should be the tank should be there at the far end. Yes, the tank should be there. But where's the tank? The tank is not there. I don't believe it. The tank is not there. Am I going crazy? The tank is not there. I ran to the far end of the green. No, the tank is not there. It can't be. Nobody could have moved the tank within a couple of days since I've been here. The tank couldn't be moved, surely. Don't be a stupid boy. Come on, the tank isn't there. Try again, run down again. Try it with your hand, left, right. No, the tank is definitely not there. Oh dear me, I feel I'm cracking up. I feel that panic is taking over. First time in my life I am panicking. Cool down, boy. Have a sip of water. In the meantime, this heat is really getting to me, and suddenly a squall of rain just comes down and wets me right through. I put my cycling cape on. No, the tank isn't there. Run left, run right. No, the tank is not there. Oh dear me, I am panicking, completely lost. Look left, look right. No, it's not there. Walk over to the left and try. No, tank's not there. Walk over to the right. Oh, there's a path there. Follow the path. So I walk maybe 50, 100 steps, and there's a kind of a wall at the end of the long straight green that I've been running up and down on. Oh, that reminds me. Vankovich was telling me that there are two such green patches or whatever, and the wall divides them. And this is behind this wall, on my side of the wall, the Germans had the anti-tank guns and mortars, and they were killing all the Polish tanks that are coming through. Anyway, I look at the far end of the second green, and lo and behold, the tank is there. My God, the tank is there. I ran towards the tank. I pat the wall and I pat the metal turret, take my wet clothes through, sweating clothes, and sit down under the solitary tree and drink the rest of my water. I'm at home now. From the tank, I know my way back home, no problem at all. I'm saved. Safe. The tank is there. I know my way back home now. Walk over to the tank, pat its turret, spread out my wet clothes on the wall, rest under the tree, rest, rest, rest. So tired in this heat. So sorry to see you disemboweled like that. But I love you and honor you, my scorpion. You are my point of reference in all the walks around Monte Cassino. Of course, I try to get inside the tank, but it's filled with concrete just to make sure that the tank is not taken away. But I couldn't get in, just my legs, and that's all. Maybe next time. My father was with the 5th KDP, Kresowa Dywizja Piechoty. He was 44 at that time and certainly too old and not fit enough to serve in the front line. So he was in the supplies with Wileńska Brigade. Being in the supplies, he must have been traveling up and down the Inferno Trail many, many times, whether on a motorbike or a jeep or perhaps a truck, loading and unloading supplies. So far, so good. He got away with it. Now, one day, perhaps the second or third time I visited Monte Cassino, I was staying at a B&B in the center of town. One day, quite casually, I mentioned to the B&B guy that I'm going to do the Inferno Trail next morning. His reaction was instant. What? You want to do it on your own? Never, never. I will not allow you. Listen, I'll come with you. and I'll ask my dad, my old man, to come with us. You know, he's from Corsica. He knows the mountains well. He knows the woods well. So he'll come with us. That will be much, much safer. And so the next morning, his old man showed up. He had a machete. He had a rope across his arm, the sort of rope that mountaineers use for shinning up and down. And most importantly, he had a medical bag with him. He had all the necessary sort of injections to save your life if you get bitten by a rattlesnake or if you get something on the head. So we set out. The three of us were off. The old man and his gadgets, the B&B host and me. In a true Italian style, we had to stop for coffee and croissant. It was breakfast time. And when we stopped, the B&B host showed me, look down below. You see that space there, you see that track there. That's the Inferno Trail. This is the one section of the Inferno Trail which is completely open and visible from here. The proprietor of the cafe came round and he said, hey, look, you see, this is right here next to my little shop, my little cafe. The Germans had an artillery unit base here, artillery and mortars. And the officer always had binoculars glued to his eyes, and he was surveying that stretch of road which was open to us. And every now and again he shouted, "Feuer! Feuer!" And the artillery opened up and they were bombarding that clear section of the Inferno Trail. Anything that showed up in that section would have been blown up to pieces. And that's why it's called the Inferno, because it was so difficult to get through the section without being shot at, killed or wounded. And most of the traffic, in fact, was at night, because just to give a little bit more protection for themselves. And so we traveled. Once we've had our coffee and croissant, we went on to the little town further up the hill, Acquafondanta, where the trail began. And Acquafondanta, next slide. Right, this is Acquafondata as it is today, or as it was at the time I was there. It's a lovely little town on the hill, and this served as the supplies center for our men on Monte Cassino. And this is Acquafondata at the time my father was there. The start of the Inferno Trail is somewhere in the right-hand corner. The next three slides show Acquafondata. The next three slides show the Inferno Trail as it was at the time my father was there. The Inferno Trail starts or ends at Cassino, follows the Pasquale Road, and then the dotted line all the way to Acquafondata, top right-hand corner. The following two slides are taken from the NZETC, shots of how the Inferno Trail looked back in 1944. The first half a kilometer was nice, easy walk, level, solid ground, but soon we entered into thicker and thicker environment, and whoops, and I suddenly landed on my back at the bottom of the ravine. This is the beginning of I suppose, of the valley or the river or the stream, which appears when the snows melt. But there was nothing. There was only 20 feet or so. So I clambered up Nobody paid me any attention. So we walked on. But then, wow, just in time, I stopped with my foot on the edge of a vertical drop of about 30 feet. It's a retaining dam which is built every so often in order to hold to slow down the waters when it rains and when the snow melts. But anyway, the old man, we were just about getting ready to shin down the sheer drop when the old man spotted a path higher up that we could circumvent this drop and get down to the bottom of the ravine safely. But this is how it looked. Amazing. Just sit and admire. Yes, I remember reading about two New Zealanders, ex-army men, who were walking this trail a couple of years ago. And when they came across this vertical drop, the retaining dam, they used ropes to shin down that vertical height. In our case, the old man actually noticed that if we climbed up a little bit higher, we could walk further on and descend down to the bottom of the ravine quite safely. And when we did descend, I had to sit down and I looked in amazement. The entire side of the wall of I suppose it is the entire side of the ravine on my left had detached itself and fell down into the bottom of the ravine. I just sat on the rock and looked in amazement. A minute or two had passed and I wouldn't budge. Forget the rattlesnakes, forget everything, just marvel at the sight of the rocks that had fallen down. But we had to walk on gingerly. I had to walk step by step across the fallen rocks. That squelching sound under my boots was rather disturbing, was unnerving. Who knows what's hidden under my boot? But anyway, we did manage, we did get across the fallen rock and onto a more solid ground. But it occurred to me that had I slipped, had I twisted my ankle, or God forbid broken my leg, I would have been done for. I would probably have never survived and never gotten out of this place. There was no contact with the world at all. None of the smartphones worked. There was no connection with the world. I would have stayed here and the rains would have come down and that would have been the end of me. So this was the Inferno Trail. It took us about 4 hours to walk the Inferno Trail. At the exit, the B&B host phoned for a car to come round and pick us up and take us back to Aquafondata, where the old man and the B&B host had left the car. I decided to stay behind and to explore the town a little bit more. It was a lovely little town and perfect weather. Someone told me that the original military cemetery was actually based right here in Aquafondata, but maybe 20 years ago or so, the bodies buried here in this cemetery were removed and reinterred in the main military cemetery in Monte Cassino. In the place where the original cemetery stood, a monument has been erected to mark that place. The Italians were very cooperative here. I knew that there was only one bus going back to Monte Cassino, and that was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So the bus was there, but I discovered that I didn't have a ticket. So I I entered a pub or a cafe trying to explain to the locals that I don't have a ticket for the bus. Where can I get one? Oh, and they all stood up and said, "Oh, don't you worry. Here's a ticket for you. Just run and get the bus." So they gave me a ticket. They gave me 2 tickets and more. They were such nice people. So I got a bus and we drove back to Monte Cassino. That was the most interesting day for me. Towards the end of one of my visits to Monte Cassino, my wife wanted to see the 5th KDP monument, the metal cross. I've been there before, but this time I thought I could see a shortcut. So, bent in half, we pushed our way through thick vegetation. And we did it. We made it to the other end, and we made it to the monument. Now, in the evening, my wife started complaining of an itchiness in her scalp. But the next day we were due to fly back. We were due to fly to Warsaw, so we ignored that. In Warsaw, it was getting a little bit worse. It was getting wet, and that itchiness was increasing. So my wife, to play it safe, went to see a doctor. He looked at it and he said, "Oi, proszę pani, you have a tick in your head." And he very gently removed the tick and pumped my wife full of antibiotics. Thankfully, she survived. She didn't get the Lyme disease, but it taught me a lesson. When it comes to shortcut, be very, very careful. Avoid those that you haven't tried before or that are not fully recognized and safe. And 80 years later, I cannot help but behave like a tourist at the metal cross. The view is absolutely magnificent, and it's only when I look directly below my feet I realize how difficult it must have been for the men from the 5th KDP. It's steep and rocky. It's not surprising then that so many of them had perished from the German machine gun fire and grenades when our men were trying to take the rock. Oh boy, I am glad my father was 44. He was too old to be in this front line, and who knows whether he would have survived. But the view is truly magnificent, unforgettable. This is my favorite place on Monte Cassino. It's a place of solitude, of total peace and quiet. And from where I am standing, I can look the Lord of Cassino in the eye without fear of being punctured by German bullets. 80 years ago, the swastika on the top of Monte Cairo was torn out and replaced by the Polish flag, just like in the Abbey, in the case of the Abbey. But this tape on my right is a challenge. I know what it says. Don't be stupid. Don't go beyond this point. It's too dangerous, too risky, and unnecessary. But 80 years ago, our men from 3rd DSK and 5th KDP, men from Bob's unit, they had to walk this trail. They had to walk this path. They had to take Villa Santa Lucia, and after that they had to go all the way down and take Piedemonte. They were told it's easy. They were told it's very lightly defended by the Germans. And good Lord, what did they find? The toughest battle on their hands as yet. But if our men walk this trail, walk this path, then I will do the same. I owe it to them, risky or not. I will try. It's a useful tourist map. I am standing at the very tip of that tooth you can see in the middle of the page. And if I follow the left fork, I will come to Villa Santa Lucia. It doesn't look so bad, so I should be okay. So, step over the white tape, lower yourself carefully, about 10 feet onto the path below, and now walk slowly, carefully is the word. Villa Santa Lucia is there ahead of me, so I know where I'm going. It's about 400 meters below. But I know where it is. I know our men had walked that way, so I must continue. But what's this? A rock slide? It's more like pebbles rather than rocks, are offering me a shortcut to Santa Lucia, some 400 meters below. Dare I cross it? There's just one strand of wire on my right with a loosely flapping netting below. But I go. So foot by foot, and I've crossed this 50 to 70 meter wide pebble slide. Wow, I'm so relieved. I can see Villa Santa Lucia ahead and down below me. I'm sure I can get there if there are no more surprises like this. But as I look up, I can see black clouds coming my way. Good Lord, if it starts raining, then I'm done for. There's no way I could cross this rock slide if it's wet. No way at all, I'm sure of that. So I'm just thinking of Forrest Gump and what lesson he had to learn, his mother's lesson. Stupid is as stupid does, and that's how I would feel, and that's how I feel. So I have to turn back. There's no point in going further. If the rain catches me, then I am really done for. So back again with the single wire, strand of wire in my left hand now, I walk foot by foot, and I've done it again. Thank you, Lord. I am safely across this rock slide, and I am safely all the way to my favorite place on Monte Cassino. I step over the white plastic tape, and I don't think I'll try it again. The cold, cruel beauty of Passo Corno is truly breathtaking. But don't dilly-dally, boy, you have to keep on moving. If the rain catches you on the rock slide, then you are done for. You will finish up 400 meters down below in Villa Santa Lucia, and you will have a burial under tons and tons of rock. And so I go, carefully, but I've made it to my favorite place in Monte Cassino. I am safe. I doubt I'll try this trail again. Two unforgettable sights on the approach to Monte Cassino. The Madonna on Monte Lungo. I just stood there, totally mesmerized. My feet felt glued to the ground. I didn't need to read her lips. The gesture tells me everything. I can understand that question. Oh Lord, why do they always bicker? Why do they always fight so? My grandson will be 44 on the 100th anniversary of these events. I hope my book will encourage him to visit Monte Cassino and maybe walk what's left of the trails.
Thank you, Jerry, so much for this fascinating talk. It's so wonderful to hear your thoughts and reflections from a very different perspective on some of those locations and some of the themes of your walks in Monte Cassino. Now let's turn to Eva and see if we have any immediate questions.
Hi, yeah, we've got one or two. One question from Marek Słomka. Thank you, Jerry, for an excellent talk. Did I understand correctly that the Kesselring family originated from the territory of the pre-war free city of Gdańsk?
No, the Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan family didn't originate in Poland, in Gdańsk, but they originated, I would say, in northeast part of Poland. That's as much as I know. Certainly in the memoir, he describes exactly where he comes from, but I don't remember the exact place.
Another question was, what would you recommend if somebody wanted to visit Monte Cassino for a few days? What would you recommend they should do?
Well, first and foremost, you've got to take into account the heat that I have experienced there. And the second point, you need to take into account the simple fact that when you are walking the trails, you may well be out of reach. You know, your telephone will be useless, like I found on the Cavendish Walk. But I would say it's very interesting to take a closer look at Piedimonte, simply because so few people look and consider Piedimonte as a point of interest. And I suppose the next point of interest would be the Cavendish Walk. There are many guided tours of Cavendish Walk, so it's never quite the same as if you are walking it alone. But it's certainly worth walking that trail. That's all.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of other questions, but I think I'm not sure if they're really for Jerry. Are there any records I could access which would tell me the role of my uncle who took part in the Battle of Monte Cassino?
Well, I would think that Creste family is a very good starting point.
I think so too. I think there's a lot of information on our website.
Yes, of course.
And also, I think if you ask questions via the Facebook group, you often get a lot of answers. And also, you can email our support address if you want some help with research.
Yeah, that's the best source of information and the quickest source of information.
Hang on, what else? A few more comments coming in. Lots of people are very pleased with your talk and thanking you for your information. Again, it's a question about database of soldiers. So I think that was the same kind of question. Somebody says they've just come back from the 80th anniversary celebrations and they've erected a new monument to General Anders in Cassino with a list of the soldiers. I would recommend seeing that, and also the statue of Wojtek. Thank you for an interesting talk. Are there any other questions? Mirka, did you have any?
Well, there is one trail that I have not written about, and that's the Big Miska and the Mała Miska. There's a big bowl and a small bowl. That was the very first trail that I walked, and I remember it to this day. And especially when I went down into the small Miska, I lost all my sense of direction completely. I wasn't sure whether I was going up or down or just horizontally round and round. But it made a very big impression on me. And every time I go to Cassino, that's my starting point, if I can put it that way.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Would that be a good?
I think that would be a good point to stop today. If anyone would like to buy any of Jerry's books, They are available on Amazon and are really worth reading. So you can find them by searching for Jerry Kubica on Amazon. A recording of this webinar will be available on YouTube within a week. This recording, as mentioned earlier, will include some additional thoughts on sections of the Cavendish Trail, the Polish 5th Kresowa Infantry Division Monument, and Villa Santa Lucia. You're very welcome to look at our channel on YouTube for this webinar, as well as other webinars, as we recorded quite a few, including a couple of very popular webinars on finding family history records. So those can help you with your own personal research. Thank you again, Jerry, for sharing your travels and your thoughts. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you for listening.